Please unmute and start.
Okay, sir. Okay. I hope I'm audible to you.
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
you are audible, please.
Thank you for giving me this time, and for giving me the opportunity to moderate the session. And we have already listened to many intriguing topics on tribal life, both insiders and insider perspective, from the inaugural session till this morning session, which is session 5. So like they have many paper presenters and even the keynote address, the welcome address from the inaugural session till this 5th session. They have introduced us to different tribes inhabitant in India, from known to the unknown, and also from unknown to the unknown that we have. They have already taken us to different tribes in India. And we can see it's getting more and more interesting, and I'm sure that we will get to know a lot more of in this session as well. And first of all this would not have been possible without Professor Panchayats sir, and our HOD of modern Indian language and literary studies. I thank you, sir, for giving a platform to streamline the tribal lives to the mainstream. So I thank you all for like, especially on behalf of the tribal people, I thank you, particularly thank you this department and to Professor Panchayats. And all this would not have happened had it not been like, if we did not organize this very seminar for the tribals, especially for the tribals. So before I give time to the paper presenters, I would also like to just share out the few decorums or the ethics that we'll be following up as we start our paper presentations. So first of all, I would like to request, accept the paper presenter. Please mute yourselves so that there would not be any distraction. And if there's anyone who want to ask questions or who want to ask anything, any queries or any suggestions, then please drop them in the chat box and during the presentation, so that we will immediately address them to the concerned paper after the concerned paper paper presenter presented her paper. And to the paper presenters, before you start your paper presentation, please introduce yourselves. And with that, I'm sure that we will all keep the ethics, maintaining the ethics, and we will have an interesting time. We will begin our first paper presenter with Divya Taigi. Her topic will be on an exploration by Gobinath Mohanty. So over to you, Divya Taigi. If you are ready, please take your time.
Thank you, Dee. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Divya Tyagi. I am a PhD research scholar currently from the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Panchayats sir to give me the opportunity to represent my views in this webinar over tribal life. So the topic for my presentation is an exploration of tribal life in Paraja by Gopinath Mohanty. Introduction. As we all know, one can trace India's literary tradition and exploration of tribal life in the rich oral literature. This vibrant oral culture is expressed in the myths, lore, legends, and saga, representing a tradition that remain hidden or unrecognized for a long period of time. It is tantamount to say that they were not present until someone has discovered them, as the concept of private and privacy remain aligned to most of these communities for a longer period of time. Their tradition, culture, exploitation, and resistance all are the collective feelings and are expressed in their folk poetries and oral traits, which are explored by various writers and social activists belonging to their community or an outsider to the tribal life and making the world aware of a different angle. As we can see in the work of Gopinath Monte, he used to say, I could have been a tribal, which I later become, as he is not tribal by birth, but has gained and understood the tribal life as he has experienced it very closely, as he is a serviceman as an officer in the Orissa. He had first-hand experience of tribal life and culture, which he transformed into rich fictional narrative, where he recorded the rich tradition that has been contributing towards understanding the Paraja tribal culture, their ideology, and their identity. Also, he attempted to tell the stories of their suffering caused by the defective social system and mechanization of civil society that was going on during that time period. About the Paraja tribe, Paraja is name of one of the major tribal groups in the forest of Koraput in Orissa. Even they were present in other parts of the state as well. The word Paraja represents the Oriental local term, which seems to be have derived from Sanskrit word Praja, which means the common people that are mainly ruled by the king. Their mother tongue is Paroji, which is a form of Gondi belonging to the South Central Dravidian languages. These representation of Paraja tribe depict their richness of their social culture, their identity through their custom, festival, dress and ornament, with an interwoven web of dependence on man and nature, signify how they treat and are treated in their community and by the others. Gopinath Monte narrated in his work the aristocracy laid on the family of a tribal person by the outsider as well as the insider. Here, the outsider were the government officials and the village superiors, such as landlords, who exploited the innocent tribal people, who surrendered to their plans as they lacked knowledge and due to their ignorance, as well as mainly due to their illiteracy, as they were not aware of their rights. The character of Sukrujani represents the tribal people of the Paraja. Though he is poor and illiterate and does not hold the knowledge, but sensible enough to measure the ill treatment that is happening against them by the superior authority, but he led to take any stand for himself. But when he took it, as he was not aware of his rights, it led to a drastic action against the person responsible for their misery and exploitation. He tried to stand like a pillar against the social system, which marginalized the people living in the backward region by following their rights and ritual inherited from the traditions. What is more interesting to see in the Paraja tribe is their community life. Their hut represent their conditions, which hold mainly a single room divided into many compartments, consist of materials that are made up of forest products, such as containers made up of leaf, umbrellas from the dry palm, dried bottle gourds to carry mandia gruel. Their food come from their surrounding. For example, we can say mandia mixed with mango seed flour, added a few edible leaves, and hence their dinner is ready. They would labor for whole day to earn a miserable handful of grains. Their needs are simple. They need a bowl of mandia gruels as food and strip of cloth over their body. Their life is mostly community based. They are related to each and every person in their society. Paraja tribe have its social bonds, administration, tradition, and judicial systems, which play a very important role to maintain the law and order, policies, hunting, which are needed for their livelihood. What is most interesting to see in this Paraja community is that represent their community-based lifestyle is the concept of dormitories, which is called Dangd Basa for boys and Dangdi Basa for girls. It was an ancient Paraja custom for the all unmarried boys and girls to sleep in their respective dormitories rather their parents' house, which is mainly built in the center of the village. There, women learn various arts and craft, and the boys and girls together celebrate various festivals. They even enjoy the liberty of knowing even each other more and more intimately. Songs and dance form a major part of their culture. Paraja boy used to play dugduga, and with it they used to sing and dance and confess their love to their beloved one. The song that we sing were totally spontaneous, which represent the oral literature of these tribes. They have a song usually for each and every occasion, from festivals to hunting, death, birth, etc. Their belief system is also very interesting to see. In tribal life, agricultural land play a very important role. They consider earth to be their mother and human being as nothing. They consider the landscape are the legacy of their ancestors, in which their generation has made the soil smooth, holding the tales of sorrows and rejoice, tradition and change. Have the ashes of those who are dead and seed from which the future generation would spring up. Even they hold a filial relationship with birds, animal, and tree. Many birds, trees, and animals were present in their myth. They respect them and pray and regard them as their mother, as it provides them with the livelihood. What is more interesting to see in the Paraja tribe is their belief in superstition. For example, the Celia creepers, as we can see in the picture that woman is collecting, is used with its flower and fruit intact are hung over the gate, as it is believed that this plant hold the power to ward away evils and protect them from any misfortunes. Even they use this Celia creepers to create wide variety of vessels that they used to sell in the weekly market to earn more money. One can find pure devotion and believe in God and respect towards ancestor. They to their ancestors. They call their ancestors as Dadi Budha. And in the Paraja tribal culture, they never forget to remember them on any special occasion. In the center of the village, around an old tree, there is a memorial to all the dead of the village. A stone was placed vertically for the man and flat representing the woman. It is believed that these stones have the spirit of the dead resides and watches his race expanding and flourishing. Their festivals are also very fascinating. They celebrate festival throughout the season. Two of the festivals I have mentioned in detail. During winter, they have a harvest festival in the month of December, a fortnight of rivalry, hunting, and feasting. They almost forget their works during that time. Drum beats day and night. People used to get up early. Men goes to collect the woods, and women painted the houses with wide varieties of colors. Even formed the design over the floors and painted the doors with charcoal mixed in oil. During in the afternoon, the women wear heavy brasses, getting ready for the festival, and wear colorful saris, and then they go to forest to bring flowers for their hairs. Flower mark the important element in Paraja's community because it represents an important ornament. Then people gather together in the evening to celebrate the festivals. Then there comes the sounds thief thief. This signals the beginning of the festival. The young boy steals articles from the house, which on the next day these stolen articles are restored at a nominal price. Sacrifices also play a very important role in this Paraja community as a way to respect their ancestors and God. For example, a black rooster was killed in front of the piles of log and fresh blood was oozed out into the soil. Then some liquor was poured on the same spot, that is Mawa wine mainly, and mixed with the blood. This was the liberation of earth goddesses sealed with various offerings. They remember and pray to Basumati, the earth goddesses, Jhankara, all prevailing one, the god of seasons, and Bagdevta, the tiger god representing animal. Then the men just the fireplace with their dugdugas, where girls stand in semicircle, linking their arm, and the dance begin. Young man call for a particular dance, then the girl has to perform the request that has been made in the form of song. Liquor play a very important role in Paraja people's life. The tribesmen would forego meal, then a bottle of pungent Maua wine. They need not only to propagate the Lord, but also to drown hunger and forget their miseries. Then the drum continue to bloom, and then comes the main event of hunt, in which the men of the tribes goes to the forest to hunt, and then the women used to tie their clothes and hang them and make a rope. Or one who failed to kill something would be made to crawl under this garment. He would be plated with dung balls and other fleas. And then come the another festival, that is the spring festival. Paraja have the Dazari or diviner or an astrologer. He used to calculate the beginning of the spring festival with the help of a medium which is called Biju. Biju is the person who is possessed by a spirit and has the power of prophecy which Disari can interpret. Paraja Disari announces the appropriate movement and would be signaled by the call of three barking deer, after which a chicken will be sacrificed. And then the headman of the village perform the further rites. During in the Paraja, the position of women is very important. During the festival also, we can see that after the men went for the hunt, then on the second day, women also took part in the hunt episodes. Men would carry a woman of their choices over their back, and they also go for hunt. This event represents the position of women that are treated equally in the tribal communities and took equal part in all activities. They are brave and took part in all the important decisions of the family, even hold the right to marry according to their choice, representing women empowerment that is present during that time also in tribal life. They did all housework work and never get tired. Paraja tribe respect their women and is ready to sacrifice anything for their pride. When the forest god, the outsider, desired to have Sukrujani's daughter, the Paraja, his anger reached the top and warned him not to think about it, as they can have their chicken and millets, but not tribal daughters. He never at once think about the consequence of his act. Even Sukrajani abandoned his daughter when she became the mistress to Sahukar, the landlord, who snatched their land. That hurt Sukrajani's pride and honor. Another important event that is present in Paraja tribe is the marriage celebration. As soon as girls and boys agree to marry together as man and wife, the marriage is recognized by tribal custom. The tribal priest, that is the Dasari, fixed the auspicious day. 4 trees were planted near the entrance to the new house. Here, new house because it is a custom in Paraja tribe that after marriage, the boy and girl will live in a separate house and not in their present house, parents' house. A scaffold made of twigs was laid across the 4 posts, and a large melon was hung. And on a auspicious time, this melon is cut, leading to the inauguration of the wedding. The bride and groom then goes to the riverside where other rituals take place. And at the end, the pigeons and fowls are sacrificed to the sound of drum, and the great wedding feast seal the marriage. In Paraja community, an unmarried daughter is a potential wealth, since the prospective groom has to pay a bride price, which is called jola, to marry. The bride price is mainly paid in 2 ways, either in the form of cash, for which the Paraja earned throughout his life, or if he is unable to pay the cash, then he has the choice to become the goti, that is the bondage labor, to his father-in-law for a specific period of time. Hence, unmarried daughter can be seen as a source of income in the family for the father. Even the boys and the girls were eligible the right to elope, which they often did. The only thing necessary to get their relationship legalized was the payment of money by the boy to the girl's father as customary bride price. Another important concept that is going on during that period is the concept of goti, that is the bondage labor. These innocent people, the Parajas, never know anything about soil conservation or the danger of destroying forests. Such consideration never enter their head. They are concerned with their present and with their personal interest. Being illiterate and have no knowledge of the government laws and authority, they live under the constant threat of official prosecution, and no existence in the jungle is possible unless one play to hide and seek. Their natural simplicity and honesty has been corroded by a lifetime of fears and insecurities by the outside world and the government's laws and order. Everyone wants to save their skins, and lies were spoken with great moral convictions. As once a Paraja goes to jail, he lost respect in his community and is abandoned by the society. Because Paraja were illiterate, the other Paraja people also not support them, because they fear about the government's laws and order, And then this condition, the unfortunate condition of tribal people, is considered to be an opportunity by the other to use the situation to make a profit for their benefit. As in case of Sukrujani, the fine is imposed by the authority for cutting the forest trees. As he did not have the money, he did not have any other choice than to turn into a goti, that is bondage labor. Goti is a traditional ancient practice in Paraja tribe in which a person serves himself to be a slave to a rich landlord for some time. In return, the landlord provide him the money. The landlord has no business worry because the tribemen never ask question and never try to cheat them. They accept his account completely and deliver to him whatever the sum of money or grain he asks as repayment. While giving the loan to Paraja, what a landlord do, he take out one blank page over which he affixed a revenue stamp and write down his own deeds and making the document legal, which he used against the Paraja people in order to capture their properties. His own member were the witnesses, and hence an innocent tribal man get engulfed in a scam. Goti has to work for his master as a slave and should be available day and night to him. They easily believe all that is told to them. Being illiterate, they measure the period of being Goti by taking a rope and tying a knot after the completion of each and every year. For a debt-bound labor, one day was no different from the other. Each day was one of his hard labor. They were abused. Their life became dark trapped in a world that is very difficult to come out. To earn more money, they get involved in illegal businesses. They collect mawa flower from the jungle to brew more liquor. They know it is an offense against the law to distill, but do it to earn their livelihood. Their exposure to materialistic life of the modern world proved their tragic path and oppression by high class people. It is complete atrocity against them, violating their normal way of life. An entry of modernization and powerful outsider into their world of tribal people has created a havoc and nightmare in their life. Their shift from masters to labor seems to impact their life in diverse way of living and leading to disasters. Paraja is an agriculture-based people. Being uneducated, they are completely ignorant about the laws of the government, and this led to being cheated by the others. The plight of tribal communities tell the story of displacement, alienation, and suffering resulting from a deep sense of being uprooted from the ancestral soul. The harassment of Sukrojani and the way he is made helpless on all count of life not only embodied the dismantled state of tribal people, but remind us of the issues of have and have not, the powerful and powerless, and the destruction of values which has been cherished for the year, a culture of identity. He is punished by the government official with a fine for cutting the trees illegally and cheated by the landlord as he captured his property, which caused him to face difficult challenge of life, resulting in his ruin of everything: culture, family, daughters, and finally a Paraja tribe. His own people only favored the forest guard and the landlord, representing him as a criminal in the court. The tragedy of Sukrujani and his family represent all the mark that put the tribal community under the hallmark of marginalized, such as land alienation, lack of opportunity for education, and almost any form of development, sexual abuse, and lack of political representation. All these have prevented them to have any relationship with the outside world, as this led to the formation of a cruel image of the outsiders, which they do not trust at all. They find their innocence is always cheated by them. This had led to a shattering the hope and aspiration of the tribal people. Their voices are crushed and made silent by the ruling class and were treated as inferior and uncivilized. The protest of Sukrujani for his legal claim is manipulated and his right has been snatched, making them suffer and sidelined. They are never averse to progress and are acceptable to the changes. Conclusion: We are aware of the fact that tribal communities suffer and feel alienated the most with modernization. There is also an impact of the loss of tribal identity. But a major change can happen if the outsider consider them to be the people belonging to the same world and help them to stand with them in all spheres so that things can be changed. More focus should be made on their education. Mother tongue is needed to be taught, as this can be the way to preserve the language, then the culture, and then the identity. Everything, even everything, were changing with the changing time period, and the emergence of tribal voices in the tribal literature is helping in knowing the invisible side of a particular culture, traditional plight, and suffering that are needed to be known by the people to understand their actual reality so that a positive change can come. Their cultural heritage, which are ancient, an amalgamation of different language, music, dance, folk tradition, rites and ritual, lifestyle, performing art, festivals, and fair literature, painting, clothes, cuisines are very fascinating that people need to know, along with the technique of the way of managing the sustainable environment that needed to be known and explored by the world. Understanding tribal life will help in giving a new understanding by decreasing the gap between the people, leading to equality and a sense of belongingness and a bond and trust with the outsider. The outsider need to understand their culture by living and by feeling themselves. Although, as we know, government is doing their best, they need to inquire more and survey more whether they are receiving the government benefits or not. Look towards their need and listen to their suggestion and give them the control over the forest as it belongs to them. The government need to appoint the officers of their community, as it is the one who can understand them much better and can do justice to his service as well. The government need to come up with various policy for their upliftment and to make them part of the existing being, as then only can nation be totally developed if all the areas of nation are uplifted together. Their culture needed to be protected, safeguarded, and promoted. It is possible to bring a change if each and every individual will take the responsibility, treat each and everyone equally, and help those who need them the most. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya. You can close your slide. In the meantime, we will take the questions. If you have any questions, we will be addressing to the questions. Okay. Yeah, we will be addressing to the questions. It was an engaging presentations. Thank you. And okay, the first question is given by Babita. She asked that, does the concept of Jola or bride price have any impact in the sex ratio of this tribe? Okay, I will repeat the question again. Does the concept of Jola or bride price, as we have said, bride price, have any impact in the sex ratio of this tribe?
No, there is no difference. It is just a concept that is very different from considering it to be the concept that is present in the other part of the country, such as other part of the state, such as dowry systems. So this concept can be seen as a way to, in a way, to them it is their tradition and culture over which we can't comment. But seeing it through the modern perspective, it is the way they were making the girls to be the commodity. So this concept has not affected on over the any sex ratio of the tribe.
Okay, thank you. I hope Babita is it answers to the questions of Babita. And Dr. Pankaj Sharma has asked you the question: what sort of efforts make for preservation of this tribe, or make for preservation of this tribe? What are the sorts that are or the efforts that are made towards preservation of this tribe? And if yes, who are the people, system, or government agency, as well as the academia, if any? Do you think? That is the first question. And the second question comes: do you think that whatever agencies that are helping the people there, are they sufficient for for this tribe?
Just give me. since there were many, the government has given wide varieties of policies for them, as we have here, but things are needed to be seen whether they were receiving what the government were offering to them. There were policies that are developed, but as we have here from our during our first lecture, that our guest has said that if the government representative is from their own community, then it would be better, because he will be able to understand them and represent them the more, and things could be better, and the various policy would be help in their development.
Okay, thank you, Divya. I hope it addresses to the questions of Dr. Pankaj Sharma. If there's any more questions, if you can please drop it. I'm requesting the participants to drop the questions if you have, or any queries or any suggestions or anything that you would like to say on the presentation. Please drop your the comments in the chat box. We have ample time. So,
Madam Moderator, since I have certain liberty to intervene,
yes,
and
sir.
for two reasons, being the organizer, and also I'm a person from Odisha and who has very closely seen the community Divya talking about. Divya's approach is to go to the reach, to the community through the text.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So he cannot comment on the preservation, and particularly Dr. Sharma's query is very fascinating in the sense that he is very regular to all our presentations and also very active in participation. So I congratulate and thank him especially for that. But Dr. Sharma, my point regarding preservation is nobody can preserve except the community. Where we confuse documentation and archivization as preservation. Preservation lies in the hands of the community. Any cultural item, if it's preserved, and that depends upon proper conservation. Conservation and preservation go simultaneously. What we do, even if we do audiovisual recording, we write book, we do reporting, we make photography and post in social media or anywhere. What we are doing is not preserving the culture, neither the culture nor the community. We are actually documenting that. So it is in the hands of the community, and community is there. And Dr. Ratottama Das, who worked on it, we had visited, and after 2007 also I have visited that area. And regarding our, again, another very active participant, Bhavita's query, Bhavita, actually this Jhola is a better term than bride price. Bride price is coined by the colonial anthropologists because they did not find the equivalent word that is equivalent to the local word used for that purpose. So what they did, they gave a rough translation. But if we go and break it and go for the word meaning, that again takes us to a derogative word, that you pay price for the bride. But that is not the fact in Paraja community. Even if you read extensively, read thoroughly the text, the translation by Vikram Kesari Das, published by Oxford University Press long back, there it is clearly mentioned, and the woman is considered as the economic asset of the community. The heroine says, "Take me home. I am not like others who waste time sitting and gossiping." And because a boy is getting the economic asset from one family, has to give some compensation to the parents of the girl. So it actually empowers in a natural way. And if someone is not capable, financially weak, it doesn't mean that he is not going to get the girl. He's also going to get, but the girl's family has the liberty to test the caliber, they will ask him to work in that family, for the girl's family. So this is a very prestigious system. But if we go for the colonial anthropologist word, bride price, followed by the Indian anthropologist without visiting field, then of course it will convey a different meaning. So because it is on Paraja, that is the text about Paraja, the community, I prefer to intervene. Normally, I don't like to do that. So I have taken the liberty. And thank you, Madam, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I hope it's clarified very well. And regarding to your reply, okay, Divya.
Thank you, sir. Because being an outsider, whatever I have learned about the Paraja tribe is through this tribal literature only, and through my teachers only. So the inner structure, I don't have that much knowledge because I have never experienced about it. Whatever I have get is through the teacher's knowledge and through the text which I have read in my master's. So thank you, sir, for supporting and for saving this.
Thank you, Professor Patnaik, sir, for clarifying Divya's questions. And also, Pankaj sir has, again, he has responded to your comment, to your clarification. So he said, you are right, sir. I do go by your take. It's the community itself to carry on. And I actually am looking for the inside support system that has come forward. Is there or not? So he is again also asking a question. In a way, whether there is an outside support system which is helping or which is coming and supporting the tribe, which is supporting the Paraja tribe.
There are government programs, there are NGOs working, but our approach is entirely different. We are not talking about encroachment. We are not talking about the support. And Dr. Sharma, if you have listened to the inaugural address of Athing Tamsen, that he said that nobody is asking them that whether you want it or not. We are deciding something, they're planning something, sitting in Delhi or at Bhubaneswar in case of Odisha, and sending people to work. He had also made another suggestion that those officials should be from the community or from that area so that they will have better motivation to work for the upliftment of the people or for the development or for, making the program successful. But what has happened? You see the situation in Paraja context. What has happened? Who are the people appointed there or transferred there? First is those who do not have connections with the government. That means they should be transferred to the remote areas. And at one point, there was a new terminology came in the administrative system that is called punishment transfer. And for your information, Divya, Bhavita, and Dr. Sharma, that Gopinath Mohanty was also transferred to that area in 1940-45. He was administrative officer for the same region. But after going there, he did not want to come back to Bhubaneswar or Cuttack. Though he was from aristocrat family, he preferred to stay and stayed for 10 years. And then their complaint went from Bhubaneswar, came to the central government that here is an administrative officer who wants to behave like a tribals and he doesn't want to listen to anybody's advice. So that shows the creative writer's involvement. Therefore, I always say the picture that has been presented in Paraja about Paraja community that was 70 years back is extremely valid, adequate, and we find each and every line exposes the socio-cultural, anthropological information, though he was neither a sociologist nor an anthropologist. He was a teacher of English, he was a student of English literature, by profession administrative officer of that time, coming from an aristocrat family of district Cuttack, but he developed interest and that's how the text has become popular. And when this text was translated in English, Bikram Kesari Das, another professor of English, translated from Paraja to English. After seeing the initial translation, even Gopinath Mohanty was not happy because the volume has been reduced. Then Bikram Kesari Das convinced him, saying, it is not for the Orias who have always access to the original text. It is for the outsiders. So I am looking at the requirement of the outsiders. So the translation is also a good translation, and that was the first. He was the first translator, perhaps from English background, got for the translation of got the Sahitya Academy Award, Central Sahitya Academy Award for this translation. So there are many things to tell. I don't want to kill your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It was like you have clarified with you have given a very insightful clarification, like taking us to not only know about the Paraja tribe, even their history and the literary history. We have brought us to like cover up all the perspective that we would like to know. And also Babita has also thank you for sharing the valuable insight about the tribe as well. And okay, and again, Dr. Pankaj Sharma has commented that thank you, sir, a lot. No doubt remains community involvement and self-empowerment is the only right way. So that's how he has commented. And if there's any more further questions, I'll take it. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, then we will move on to the next. Again, just moving on to the next question. It's just like just that I'm curious to know whether like you have mentioned about the dormitory systems that's being practiced within the Paraja tribe, which I also have the similarity that we also practice some what you have explained in your presentation. We also practice somewhat like a dormitory systems, which has like unmarried boys and girls, separate dormitory system for boys. So I just want to know, just a query, it's just a curious question. I just want to know whether they still practice this kind of this dormitory system, or they have already given. I just want to know.
Since I have taken all the information through the tribal literary text, so right now I don't have any idea whether they were practicing it now also. So I tried to find the information, but I did not find much over it.
Okay, it will be very interesting if you like delve into more of this, and it will be very interesting because you can also study in this comparative study, because studying in the northeastern side, from the northeastern side, we also practice this kind of dormitory system. So yeah, you can also look into that as well. Thank you, Divya. It was a very insightful and engaging presentations. And if we don't have any more queries, then we will move on to the next paper presenter. There are just two paper presenters today. Two of them did not turn up. So we'll just move on to the next paper presenter, Rajni Kanwar, who will be speaking on the annihilations of tribal rights in Rajam Krishnans when the Kiranji blooms. So she will be talking about on this topic. Rajni Kanwar, please introduce yourselves when you before you present your paper. So over to you, Rajni. Please unmute yourself, Rajni.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you please unmute another of my, like I am logging from another account also.
Dr. Venkat, please help for Shiva.
Rajni, you can unmute. Both are.
Sure. Are you getting my audio?
You are using two devices. There is echo.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, you are right.
Is it okay now?
Audible. Yes, now very much.
Okay. Thank you,
Huh.
Setulu. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rajni Kanwar. I am PhD candidate at the Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies. My paper is entitled Annihilation of Tribal Rights in Rajam Krishnan's When the Kurinji Blooms. This paper is an attempt to illustrate the literary portrayal of Badagas community and the issues related to their land rights. The work was originally written by Rajam Krishnan in Tamil language in 1963, which was later translated into English by Uma Narayan and Prema Sitarama. Let me tell a brief layout of this paper. The first part zooms in on the brief introduction about the writer and what motivated her to write about the life of tribal people. It also lays out the theoretical building blocks by introducing Badagas community and their lifestyle. The second part talks about a preliminary understanding of the foundational principles of tribal protection laws regarding land rights and how these relate to the interpretation of general human rights and the rights of tribal people. In this respect, the aspect of recognition of tribal identity and their integration in the mainstream society is also deliberated upon in this paper. To begin with, Rajam Krishnan, a prolific feminist writer, a Sahitya Academy awardee in 1973, is an indigenous writer who belongs from Tamil Nadu. Her work is a brilliant masterpiece of indigenous literature. In the early 20th century, the term indigenous gets its importance, gets its prominence for indicating the natives of the earth. In the world literature, this term is used to mention the aboriginals, natives, tribes, and marginalized people of the society. Indigenous literature gives importance to the past. The primary focus in indigenous literature is on the life of tribal people as how they live with nature and protect natural vegetation for the survivability of the Mother Earth. As a social activist, Rajam Krishnan has always supported tribal people and their living. It is crucial to highlight that before writing her work, Krishnan undertook an extensive fieldwork herself. Hence, her work is not just a piece of imaginative writing. Rather, she has lived this experience, visited the spot, and dwelt with the people about whom she wrote, and thus brings out the hidden facts about the tribes through literature. She explains how the ethnical values of tribes have been degraded from generation to generation. Their ritualistic practices, the way of dressing, and their unique behavior, which used to make them stand apart from the civilized society, has now been diminishing. Her novel is a saga of 3 generations of 2 families of Badagas, traversing 50 years. It begins with the Badagas, who live in a peaceful and content life in the hillsides of Nilgiris, which is covered with Kurinji flowers. The word Kurinji refers to a blue flower which blooms once in a 12 years in the hills of Nilgiris. But with the advent of modernity, no one is aware when this miracle takes place nowadays. The novelist suggests that of the upcoming modernity has brought a lot of changes in the lives of people. For instance, they have become more money centric, they are losing their most preserved tradition and the cultural heritage. Not only this, the peaceful environment of Nilgiris has also been altered and devastated by such modernization. In Tamil Nadu, the tribal people are concentrated mainly in the Nilgiris district, although there are many tribes like Kodas, Thodas, Irulas, Kurumbas, Kattunayakan, and Paliyan. But the focus of the author is mainly on the tribal group called Badagas. The name Badaga, meaning northerner, comes from Old Kannada Badagana, meaning north, according to the Badaka oral tradition. According to the Badaka oral tradition, their ancestors were presumed to be Vokaligas, who migrated from the plains of Mysore to avoid Muslim persecution. According to American anthropologist Paul Hawkins, the Badaga tribes, despite its sketchy history, is as indigenous to Nilgiris as the English are to Britain. The prime language used by these people is Badaga language, which is the mixture of Kannada and Tamil. According to S. Gayatri, there is no particular script for Badaga language. However, they have a rich oral tradition of folk tales, poetry, and songs. Badagas live in the village called Hattis. The traditional Badaga man wears a dhoti and a dupatti, which is a long piece of thick special weave of cotton and a turban. The Badaga's women ornaments consist of brass, iron, and silver, whereas their apparel consists of thundu, mundu, and pattu. The thundu is a piece of white rectangular cloth worn like a shawl over the shoulders. The pattu is a scarf-like piece of white cotton cloth worn square across the forehead and tucked in at the back of the head. Whereas young girls of marriageable age in the Badaga community are tattooed on the forehead and the chest with lines and dots. These ceremonies, the ceremonies related to Badaga marriages are worth mentioning and are very colorful in its setting. The novel elaborately describes the marriage ceremony of Paru with Rangan, who has won her in the stone lifting competition. Badagas also believe in black magic spells, the spirit, and rebirth. Though they are the true believers of God and they live very close to nature, they believe in superstitious things which sometimes dominate their lives. In the novel, the protagonist Jogi, as a young boy, hears stories of Kurumba tribe from his grandmother. The Kurumbas are the forest dwellers. They practice black magic secretly at the dead of night inside the forest. Death is celebrated like a festival by the Badagas tribe because they believe in rebirth. So they send the soul and body happily to the heaven to get a good soul for the next birth. Lingaya has a belief that he will be reborn in his wife's lap as her grandson. After the death of the person, the Badagas have the custom of placing a gold piece on the mouth of the dead person, which is called Verea Panmant, to pour milk over it. The gold piece will slowly slide down the tongue with the milk, which confirms the death of the person. Lingaya's funeral is fulfilling the tradition by having a grand funeral by constructing a 7-tiered funeral car decorated with cloth and steamers to carry the great man's body. These are the facts which show that the novel consists of taste of southern culture of India, especially the culture of tribal people. There are some festivals which are celebrated by the tribal with their own customs and tradition. The life of tribal is like a festival and they celebrate it with great enthusiasm. Rituals and ceremonies are inseparable in culture, in the life of tribal. Rajam Krishnan snapshots the characteristic spirit of Badaga culture as manifested in their attitudes, aspirations, and customs. The Badagas follow Hinduism and follow Lord Shiva. They have numerous shrines and temples. They celebrate festivals like Heta Habba, Deva Habba, Doda Habba, Sakalati Habba, Jadeshwama Habba, and Mangkali Habba. They also celebrate their major festivals like Diwali, Pongal, Ayutthaya Puja as per the directions of their customs and tradition. The Badagas who live in Tamil Nadu celebrate Tamil festivals like Thai Pongal, fireworking festivals on coals in front of the temple, and sowing festival. All these festivals are related to the harvest of the field. The ritual of walking on fire coals has been performed in the Madalingeshwara temple of Kizamalai. They believe that everyone will rejuvenate by fresh blood and the bare branches will sprout new leaves after performing the ritual. The novel narrates the fire-walking festival as 7 men, their shaven heads smeared with sandal paste and their necks adorned with the garlands of kadamba flowers, came singing and dancing. In the novel, Lingaya has participated in the fire walking festival after several weeks of fasting and other rituals to get a newborn to his daughter-in-law. Each and every tribe of the hill considers the Blue Mountain as their mother god and claims the root of kinship in the land. The tribes follow their ancestral way of medical practice. They get medicines from valuable herbs which are found in the forest. The advancement in medical field destructs the medicinal value of herbs and forces all the people to tend in the hospital for treatment. The tribal community considers hospitals as hell, and they believe that if a person visits hospital, death is the only outcome. The novel supports this idea by stating how a woman admitted in a hospital died during labor. Resultantly, all the tribes were forced to get vaccination for some disease. After that, many people have died because of that vaccine. The tribal people haven't witnessed such incidents before. Rajam Krishnan blames these attitude of medical field and she directly attacks the modern medical practice. Now talking about the second part of this paper, the concept of rights, censors, anti-humanistic mindsets and visions for a more dignified life of human beings without any discrimination. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People identifies Indigenous people as peoples with the right to self-determination. As per Article 3, Indigenous people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. This right cannot be realized unless their practices, customs, priorities, and institutions are fully acknowledged. The declaration thus requires that a state, in consultation and cooperation with indigenous people, shall take the appropriate measures, including legislative measures, to achieve the end for their benefit. The two foundational principles of tribal rights protection can be the right to equality and the right to identity. The interpretation of fundamental rights is essential to identify exact contours of the scope of application of the rights and the strength of the ensuing protection. In this respect, it is essential to realize that human rights are not static. The rights to identity should be understood in relation to the fact that the concept tribal refers to a community group with a separate own ethnic, religious, and or linguistic community. The right to identity more generally implies that their special needs should be taken into consideration. A failure to do so would indirectly affect the ability to enjoy one's right to identity. Here I argue if exclusion is defined more broadly in terms of being prevented from entering or participating or being considered or accepted, tribal people fit squarely within the conception of excluded people. Tribes are characterized not by any habit or religious practice, but in my understanding, by the bonding fabric of kinship and joint ownership of the natural resources from which they make their living. The tribal people have distinct cultural and linguistic characteristics, but the cultural distance and spatial isolation between them and the mainstream is often cited as the reason for their deprivation. Moreover, the specific reason of their exclusion is related to land and natural resources. Tribals and forests are ecologically and economically inseparable. They have coexisted since time immemorial and will continue to exist in a mutually reinforcing relationship. In this regard, these tribals have always been sentimentally attached to the forest and have considered them to be a nature's gift. Being a gift of nature, the tribals living in the forest villages should be given heritable and inalienable rights over the land which they have cultivated for their livelihood. Even where horticulture is plentiful, poor marketing and transportation make tribal agriculture unviable income-generating enterprise. In the words of Amita Bhaviskar, the state control over forest during the colonial period meant that the traditional sources of livelihood of tribal people has become the property of the state. Having become communal owners of the forest, they become tenants, trespassers, and poachers. The novel offers a strong critique of developmental paradigms and considered it as exploitative of tribal rights. Apart from the loss of housing and land, the loss of control over their, I quote, jal, jungle and zameen, unquote, which is water, forest and land, has alienated them in their own land. It resultantly has affected their traditional food practices and forced them to migrate to cities to work under harsh conditions. Thus, the large infrastructure settled on tribal lands has led to a large-scale usurpation, displacement, and discontent. Claims for land rights make emotive demands for both the recognition of a unique identity and the material redistribution of resources. It is thus representation of tribal people as having a special relationship with their natural surroundings that continues to reinforce the protection of tribal land. A British-born Indian tribal activist, Verrier Elvin, had argued that the tribal person was as much culturally as economically tied to his or her natural surroundings, and that tribal society was based on a special kind of unity and solidarity with significant elements of fraternity and equality, and with a much higher status afforded to women when compared to the rest of India. On paper, strong laws exist to give formal support to these rights, but these have never been implemented more than half-heartedly. There are various legal safeguards for tribals, but the implementation has made difficult. The government is cognizant of the issues of tribal rights over the land and forest, while land reforms have been a key objective since independence. Other legislation has also been in practice to protect tribal land and prevent alienation. One of the most important pieces of legislation in the last few years is PESA, PESA, which is the provisions of the Panchayats Act 1996. It is related to strengthen the voice of Gram Sabhas on issues related to mining, leases, and infrastructure development in tribal areas. Recently, the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act 2006, known prominently as the Forest Rights Act or the Tribal Rights Act, recognizes the preeminent rights of tribals over forest land and guarantees them access to forest and forest produce. Associated with these rights are responsibilities where the tribals must ensure the substantial use of forest and conserve biodiversity. Thus, both PESA and the Tribal Rights Act fundamentally questions the power relation between tribal and non-tribal areas and purports to transfer greater power to the former. Yet, threats of dispossession by development projects, including dams and mines, have become prominent in the last years. Here I would come to an end by quoting the words of Christian Bay, who says, quote, "Not because they are indigenous people, but because they are human beings with indigenous cultures and with unique ways of being human, should their defense and protection be a matter of the highest priority concern for all people over the world who cares about human rights." Unquote. In this way, the novel taken for this paper provides a vibrant picture of the lost ethnical value of tribal group of Padakas community. In the novel, the loss of Kurinji flower can be understood as a symbol and a note to human race that the glory once lost cannot be regained by modern technology and science. Thank you.
Thank you, Ragni. It was an engaging and insightful paper presentation. If there's any questions, and I'll take a question. I request the participants to drop the question or any suggestions or anything that you would like to ask, to drop your question in your comment in the chat box. I'll take your comments from the chat box. Okay. While we're waiting for this question from the other participants, let me just ask you a queries. Just like, does this very work of this Ranjan Krishnan, whether the very work that you have presented, does it really represent does it do justice while representing the life or the tribal lives of the Badagos in which you have presented in your paper? Does it really does justice, or does it really portray the greater part of the real life situations of the tribal life, or has this been exaggerated somewhere, or what is your stand to this?
Well, Setlu, what I believe that the author, since she belongs from an indigenous community herself, has dwelled with the people, as I said in my paper. So I think that, yes, she has the actual experience of the life, Badaga's life in particular. And as far as possible, she has tried to portray a real presentation as how they are living, how they dress, how their customs are being followed. I think it is the true representation.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Ranjini. And if there's any questions or anything that you wanted to, any comment? Okay, Pankaj sir has given his comment. I will read out. Nice presentation, though maybe a bit out of context and your area of interest. Yet, if you would like to answer, do you think climate change is affecting the tribal cultures and community the most?
Yes, of course, because climate change is related to their land, to their environment. Yes, of course, it is affecting. There won't be any denial that it's not affecting their lands too.
Thank you, Rajni. I hope it addresses to the questions of Dr. Pankaj Sharma. If you have any queries, any more queries or any more comment or any suggestion that you would like to drop in the chat box, please, we still have ample time, you can do so. Okay, so if there's no more queries or any more doubts, then I think this will be the end of our this presentation. We have other two who did not turn up, so I hope and I am hoping that the participants, the upcoming participants, would not disappoint us, and we will have more interesting paper presentation in the upcoming session. And for these two paper presentations, they have very meticulously have taken up that even tribes, the tribal life can be taken. We can also use tribal life literature from the perspective of literature, and that literature can also be the mouthpiece of tribal lives that they have shown it to us. They have elaborated it to us. Thank you to both the paper presenters, and also thank you to the participants as well. And I also again convey my thanks to our convener and also the HOD of the department, Professor Patnaik sir, and not only to Professor Patnaik sir, also to Mehta sir, Dr. Mehta sir, who has also been ever since he started working, webinar started, he has been handling all the technical issues to make sure that there's no technical glitches in the seminar, and so that we will have a wonderful session without any disturbance.
He is Dr. Venkat.
Yes, sir. So okay. I'm sorry for this. So, and thank you, everyone. And I'm sure with all this participation with this paper presentations, I'm positively sure that by the end of our webinar, we will all have a new approach, a better understanding of the tribal lives of India. And also this will encourage many researchers to venture into personal field work or explore more in the future. I thank Professor Patnaik again. Thank you so much. So over to you.
I have a couple of announcements and to all the participants. Recorded version of all the programs, right from the inauguration session till now, will be available, are also available, and this session will be available by evening today on YouTube. And I request Dr. Venkat to give us the link to pass it to all the participants. Second thing is, those who did not find their name in the first part, please check. I'm certain that we are going to accommodate your papers in the second part, that is going to begin from 8th April, 8, 9, 10, 3 days next week. If somebody doesn't get any information, can always make it good. And do support like this. Let us think collectively. Let us plan something to bring out this concept into reality, that yes, we are going to open the gate to work on a particular area and explore a new investigation area, taking ourselves a little away from the anthropological approach. So these are the two things, and very soon you are going to get the next schedule by Wednesday. So this is from my side. Madam, you conclude the session now.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I hope everyone has already kept in mind what Professor Patnaik have said. Like he have said that there will be another.
Dr. Unmute. Dr. Unmute.
I have already unmuted, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. For like, I hope everyone
Not
has.
unmuted.
Sir, I have already unmuted.
Not
Okay.
yet.
Sir, but we are able to hear Setludi.
Yeah, I hope you are hearing. I have to actually I have to profile link with that I'm using with two apps. That's the reason for that very reason.
Satlu, we are not listening you, able to listen you, but there is Bhavita message on the chat box. Yes, Bhavita, it will be there by evening, it will be there, and we will send you the link. We will send all the link to all of you. So I don't know, there is some problem.
But it is available, sir. It is already available, sir. Morning itself.
No problem. Thank you, Dr. Satlu,
Thank
for
you, sir.
joining the responsibility.
Thank
And
you,
you
everyone, and thank you, sir.
Okay. So let's leave now. And we thank Dr. Venkat again for taking the responsibility and working very hard during these 3 days. And we expect similar support from all of you in the next part of the webinar. And once different parts of the webinar they are over, we'll be providing you the abstract volume. Thank you.
Thank you.